Donna Troy. Donna Troy gets roasted a lot for having more origin stories than Riley Reid has a body count. But here's the wild part. She wasn't even supposed to exist. Wonder Girl started out as just Wonder Woman, but younger. Just simple flashback stories. But then some editor at DC saw her and went, hey, the Teen Titans need a girl, and boom, they slapped teenage Diana onto the team like you copy-pasting your friend's essays. The problem? Nobody realized she was literally the same person as Wonder Woman. So when readers asked how that made sense, the writers panicked harder than me when my parents walked into my room at appropriate times, if you know what I mean. To fix it, they gave her a name, Donna Troy, and cooked up an origin about her being an orphan raised by Amazons, which to me is a cool idea, until future DC events like Crisis on Infinite Earths nuked continuity harder than the little boy. Every writer tried to fix her story, which somehow made it worse, or interesting to many people. She's been a clone, a cosmic duplicate, a goddess, and a cursed soul, basically every Who Am I storyline in one very confused Amazon. What makes it even funnier to me is that all this chaos started because of a simple editorial mix-up. Donna was never planned, just a happy, or tragic, accident who accidentally became one of DC's most beloved emotional anchors. She's proof that sometimes even a mistake can outlive the original idea, and maybe cry about it along the way. Gwenpool. People love to drag Gwenpool as discount Deadpool in pink, but here's the twist. She literally started as a joke about fan art. Back in 2015, Marvel was dropping a wave of Gwen Stacy mashup covers, and artist Chris Bachalo casually drew a Gwen version of Deadpool for Deadpool's Secret Wars #2. No backstory, no plan, just what if Gwen wore Deadpool's outfit? It was supposed to be a throwaway variant cover, but the internet went absolutely feral for it. Memes, fan edits, cosplay, all those works. Marvel editors Heather Antos and Jordan D. White saw the chaos and went, okay, fine, she's real now. They tossed her into Howard the Duck and a holiday special, and then handed writer Christopher Hastings the job of giving her an actual personality. That's when Gwenpool, a comic book fangirl from our world, crashed headfirst into Marvel continuity like someone entering a fandom server uninvited. She knew tropes, panels, and plot armor, and used them all like cheat codes. What makes it even wilder to me is that she was never supposed to be deep. But Hastings leaned in, turning this meme-born disaster into a strangely heartfelt story about identity, fandom, and finding meaning in a world that's literally written. Gwenpool started as a joke, became an inside joke, and somehow ended up breaking every wall in the room, including the one between readers and the page. Jeff the Landshark. Jeff the Landshark might look like Marvel's attempt to weaponize cuteness, but his origin story is pure chaos. He started as a random background monster in West Coast Avengers, one of MODOK's goofy land sharks, basically piranhas with legs. Artist Danielle Di Nuculo happened to draw one extra small and oddly adorable, and writer Kelly Thompson took one look and went, wait, that one's special. From there, she kept sneaking the tiny shark into panels as a running gag. Gwenpool would adopt one, lose one, adopt another, until fans collectively lost their minds over the little guy. Eventually, the editors gave in. The tiny shark officially became Jeff, complete with a name, a personality, and a habit of chewing everything except plot armor. He was adopted by Gwenpool, then bounced around between heroes like Kate Bishop, Deadpool, and Elsa Bloodstone, because of course everyone wants to adopt him. On top of that, he somehow swam out of the comic margins into plush toys, webtoons, and video games like Marvel Rivals. He's really big there. All because someone drew one shark a little too cute. What's even funnier is that Jeff wasn't designed to mean anything. He was literally a doodle that refused to stay in the background. But that's the magic of Marvel Chaos. A random gag monster turned into a fan-favorite mascot. To me, Jeff was never meant to change the world. He just wanted snacks. And yet, here he is, stealing every scene and half your heart while he's at it. Dex Star. Some people clown on Dex Star for being just a cat with anger issues, but that's kind of the point. He wasn't supposed to exist in the first place. During the making of Final Crisis Rage of Red Lanterns, artist Shane Davis doodled a random red cat puking plasma in the background because, well, it was funny. He even named it after his own pet, Dexter, which is pretty cute of him if you ask me. It was meant to be a blink and you miss it gag, a little chaos hidden in between all the cosmic rage and death. Then Jeff Johns saw the cat and said, wait, that guy's amazing. Instead of staying a background meme, Dex Star got promoted to a real Red Lantern. Johns gave him an origin story so dark it could make Batman's therapist quit, if he had one. Here's the origin. An adopted Brooklyn kitty whose owner was murdered, who was tossed off a bridge in a sack and was saved mid-fall by a red power ring sensing his fury. From there, Dexter became Dex Star, the tiniest, angriest member of the Corps, flying through space barfing liquid hate. Some of the others mentioned before, all this tragic lore came from an inside joke. A background sketch of a mad cat turned into one of DC's most unexpectedly emotional characters. He's proof that even the smallest mistake, or doodle to be precise, can claw its way into legend. So yeah, laugh all you want, but Dex Star earned all that rage. Somehow throw this good kitty a space treat before he melts another planet. Gregory Rasputin. Sometimes the best characters show up because the writers couldn't get the one they actually wanted. That's exactly how Gregory Rasputin wandered into DC Comics. Not the infamous Russian mystic from history, but a trench-coatless, magic-savvy counterpart built out of editorial necessity. When writer John Ostrander was crafting his late 80s Firestorm comics, he wanted to bring in John Constantine because he's awesome, we all know that. But DC's licensing rules said nope, Constantine was off doing his own brooding elsewhere. So Ostrander did what every good writer does when blocked by paperwork, he made his own guy. Enter Gregory Rasputin, a stoic Russian sorcerer with ties to folklore and Cold War mysticism. Someone who could talk to spirits, tame fire elements, and drop cryptic wisdom without chains smoking through every panel. Artist Tom Grindberg helped shape his look, and suddenly this substitute became something more than a placeholder. Rasputin had that mysterious vibe of half mentor and half manipulator, the kind of character who shows up in a snowstorm, mutters something about the balance of flame, and disappears before you can ask what he meant. What started as "we can't use Constantine" ended with a character who fit perfectly into DC's weird elemental mythos. Rasputin wasn't a mistake so much as an accident that worked, and the kind of creative pivot that happens when a no from editorial accidentally sparks something fresh, strange, and oddly entertaining. Herbie. You know this little guy from the Fantastic Four movie? He was only created because Johnny Storm wasn't available. Back in 1978, the Fantastic Four were getting their own Hanna-Barbera cartoon. You know, like the Flintstones, Scooby-Doo. Very nostalgic. But the producers ran into a snag. Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, was off limits. Licensing drama plus rumors that executives worried kids might set themselves on fire pretending to be him. Wild, I know. Though some say it's a hoax. So instead of reshuffling the team, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby whipped up a brand new member. A squat, cheerful robot who looked like a cross between Roomba and a smiley face sticker. His name? Herbie. The robot filled in surprisingly well. He beeped, hovered, cracked jokes, and helped Reed Richards save the day, basically the team's emotional support toaster. And audiences loved him. What started as a quick fix turned into genuine affection, so Marvel decided to bring Herbie into the comics. Marv Wolfman and John Byrne handled the transition in Fantastic Four number 209, where he officially joined the family as Reed's lab assistant and Franklin's mechanical babysitter. It's also interesting to me how the little robot outlasted the cartoon he was made for. Herbie went from stand-in to staple, popping in comics, cartoons, and even games decades later. All because the studio couldn't light a man on fire safely. So there you go, Herbie, a friendly little robot born out of legal trouble who somehow became part of Marvel's first family. Deadpool. Deadpool starts out as Marvel's version of, yeah, let's make a cool guy with swords and see what happens. In 1991, Lob Liefeld sketched a masked mercenary with pouches for days and twin katanas and handed him off to writer Fabia Nisizia to fill in the blanks. Nisizia looked at the design and said, basically, ooh, cool, so Slade Wilson but Marvel, and named him Wade Wilson as a deliberate inside joke. It's like someone bald entered a certain industry and named himself Johnny Virtue, you know, to copy the other Johnny. That's how Deadpool began, a one-off villain meant to annoy the New Mutants, stab a few people, and disappear into the long line of 90s try-hard assassins. Except fans loved him. I loved him, for sure. Against all logic, this snarky red-suited menace caught on. Letters poured in, editors smiled, and suddenly Marvel realized they'd accidentally created a hit. Other writers took over, peeling back the mask and turning the edgy goon into something way stranger, which is a self-aware, heartbroken merc with a mouth who won't stop talking, even to us. Then Joe Kelly's 1997 run sealed it. Deadpool wasn't just violent. He was tragic, hilarious, and deeply unhinged in a way that somehow worked. What's funny is that none of it was planned. Liefeld just wanted an action figure with guns. Nicieza wanted a quick laugh, and Marvel ended up with a pop culture phenomenon who breaks the fourth wall like he protects the Epstein files. Deadpool began as a parody, stayed as a parody, and somehow became one of the most sincere jokes in comic history. Willoughby Kipling. Willoughby Kipling feels like that wizard who showed up at the wrong party but stayed because the booze was good. He's the Doom Patrol's resident occult train wreck, chain-smoking, trench-coated, and barely holding it together. But here's the fun part. He only exists because DC told Grant Morrison no. When Morrison started writing Doom Patrol in the late 80s, he wanted to bring in John Constantine, who I like to call the ultimate cynical magician. Editorial said Constantine was off limits, tied up in Hellblazer continuity. So Morrison did what every writer does when their toy gets taken away, made a new one out of spite and sarcasm. Enter Willoughby Kipling, same British accent, same nicotine dependence, but less swagger and more hangover priest energy. Artist Richard Case gave him a disheveled Withnail-style look, and Morrison leaned hard into the idea of a washed-up mage who talks big, cries harder, and still somehow saves the world. On top of that, Kipling was weirder than Constantine ever could be. He cast spells with cigarettes, holy water, and the occasional beer bottle because why not? But I think the best part is that he was supposed to be a stand-in, yet he carved his own cult following. Kipling became a reoccurring Doom Patrol ally, popped up in other media, and somehow turned being a knockoff into an aesthetic. He's the magical equivalent of a cover band that got too good. Constantine walked so Kipling could stumble dramatically through the apocalypse and still win. Some of the X-Men. Before Giant Size X-Men #1, the X-Men comics were basically dying on the vine, sales flat, ideas stale, and readers moving on. Then Len Wein and artist Dave Cockrum walked in like Marvel's version of a creative emergency response team and said, okay, what if we made the X-Men actually global? That's how Storm, Nightcrawler, and Colossus were born. Wein and Cockrum built an international lineup on purpose. A weather goddess from Kenya, a teleporting German circus kid who looks like a blue demon, and a Russian farm boy who turns into living metal. It was part strategy, part creative gamble, and it worked so well, it basically rebooted Mutant overnight. What's funny is that, for all the careful planning, some of the magic still came from chaos. Cockrum had been sketching character ideas for years, and some of them, like Nightcrawler, were literally pulled from his unused folder. He'd pitched the design to DC earlier, got rejected, and recycled it here. Storm, meanwhile, was a Frankenstein of old concepts stitched into something legendary. Then there's Mystique, Cockrum's design, Chris Claremont's brainchild, and Marvel's editorial improvisation. She wasn't born out of deep planning, she just appeared, slithered through a few Miss Marvel issues, and slowly turned into one of Marvel's most unpredictable shapeshifters. So yeah, the new X-Men weren't a happy accident, they were a calculated Hail Mary with a few improvised brushstrokes. Sometimes saving a franchise starts with raiding your old sketchbook, I guess. Firestar. The kind of hero people forget until she wakes up and melts the room. Literally. And the funniest part is, she only exists because Marvel couldn't get the Human Torch's permission slip signed. Back in 1981, the team behind Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends wanted Spidey to hang out with Iceman and another fire guy. Easy, right? Except the Human Torch was tied up in legal red tape. Again, just like that Herbie scenario all over again. So the studio just made up a new character on the spot. After tossing around names like Heatwave and Starblaze, they landed on Firestar, a cheerful redhead with microwave powers and Saturday morning optimism. She wasn't meant to be a comic book hero, just a cartoon co-star to balance out Iceman's dad jokes. But audiences loved her, and Marvel suddenly had to pretend she'd always been part of the universe. That led to some frantic backtracking, cameos in Uncanny X-Men, a solo miniseries explaining she was secretly a mutant, and eventually stints with the New Warriors, the X-Men, and even the Avengers. She's basically been everywhere like Matt and the Bill Clinton kid. What started as a licensing workaround turned into one of Marvel's most unexpectedly constant heroines. What makes it even funnier is that Firestar began as a replacement character and ended up outlasting half the people she was supposed to stand in for. She went from "we couldn't get the rights" to "actually, she's family now." Sometimes corporate panic accidentally creates a legend, and in Angelica Jones' case, one that burns bright. X-23. Laura Kinney wasn't born in a lab accident, she was born in a writer's room panic. When X-Men Evolution TV series needed a way to make Wolverine relatable to younger viewers, the creative team had a wild idea. What if Wolverine, but teenager? Not a son, not a sidekick, but an actual clone. A kid who carried all his powers and none of his coping skills. The result was X-23. A quiet, deadly girl bred to kill, raised in captivity, and emotionally wired like a grenade with the pin halfway out. At first, she was supposed to appear in just one episode, but the audience reaction was huge. People love this tragic mini Wolverine with knives in her feet, which could be a new fetish for some people. Marvel took notice and pulled the ultimate upgrade move. They dropped her straight into the comics. Laura made her print debut in NYX #3 as a runaway teenage assassin wandering through New York, then got her own brutal origin miniseries, written by Craig Kyle and Christopher Yost, who created her. On top of that, she became a permanent part of X-Men canon, eventually taking up Wolverine's mantle after Logan's death. The funny thing, she wasn't meant to be a headliner. She was a creative fix that became essential. What started as "we need a younger Wolverine for the kids" moment turned into one of Marvel's most heartbreaking success stories. Laura Kinney may have been designed for relatability, but she walked out of the lab fully iconic, period. Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones is that Marvel character who looks like she's been through 3 lifetimes of bad decisions and one very long hangover, and funny enough, she kind of wasn't meant to be herself. When Brian Michael Bendis started writing Alias for Marvel's new adults-only Max imprint, his plan was to center it on Spider-Woman Jessica Drew. She was supposed to be a washed-up ex-hero turned private investigator, cracking cases while swearing like she's Detective Conan Light. But somewhere between the first pages, Bendis realized the character he was writing didn't sound like Jessica Drew at all. She was messier, angrier, more damaged, and honestly way too bitter for a former Avenger. So instead of forcing it, he tossed the plan and said, "Fine, new character." Out of that rewrite came Jessica Jones, a superpowered burnout who used to wear spandex, now drowning her trauma in cheap whiskey and bad decisions. On top of that, her debut in Alias hit so hard that Marvel couldn't keep her in the Max corner forever. She eventually wandered into the mainstream, dragged herself into the Pulse and New Avengers, and even became a wife and mom. Congrats! What makes it hilarious to me is that Jessica Jones only exists because Bendis' dialogue started arguing with itself. She was literally born from a writer losing control of his own script, and somehow that chaotic energy became the soul of her entire character. Miss Martian. Miss Martian creation story basically starts with a scheduling conflict. In the mid-2000s, writer Jeff Johns was building his Teen Titans lineup and wanted Supergirl to fill the optimistic powerhouse teen slot. But DC said nope. Kara was busy doing other continuity gymnastics. So Johns did what any determined writer would. He built a brand new alien teen from scratch and gave her green skin, telepathy, and enough emotional baggage to fill a Smallville season. That's how M'Gan Moraz, Miss Martian, was born. She was meant to be a quick replacement, a placeholder with Martian powers and a big smile. But then something unexpected happened. Readers actually liked her. Behind the bubbly, "Hi, I'm new here" personality was a heavy accent. She wasn't a green Martian like her mentor John Johns, but a white Martian, part of the race everyone feared. What started as a simple Supergirl substitute suddenly turned into a story about identity, shame, and the fear of being seen for who you really are. On top of that, the Young Justice animated series turned her from a comic footnote into a full-blown fan favorite, complete with heartbreaks, telepathic breakdowns, and the occasional alien romance drama that could rival Nidonair plots. It's wild, a character created just to fill space because one of DC's most empathetic heroes. Miss Martian wasn't meant to define an era, but somehow she shapeshifted right into the heart of it. Venom. Venom gets a lot of flack for being Spider-Man's emo phase that never ended, but his creation story is way more chaotic than it looks. It all started when a random fan, Randy Schuler, sent Marvel a letter in the early 80s pitching a new black costume for Spider-Man that could boost his powers. Marvel loved it so much, they bought the idea for a whopping $220, basically gas money, for a cosmic horror icon. From there, the editorials ran wild. During Secret Wars, Spider-Man gets a mysterious black suit and everyone at Marvel goes, "Cool new look," without realizing they were accidentally birthing one of Marvel's biggest villains. Years later, writer David Michelin decided that the suit needed a personality and a reason to hate Peter Parker. So he fused with it Eddie Brock, a disgraced reporter. Enter Todd McFarlane, who looked at the sleek black costume and said, "Needs more teeth," and suddenly Venom was terrifying. The result? A monster born out of fan mail, office improvisation, and one artist's love for drawing drool. What I think is super funny is how many people claim to have created Venom, because technically they all did. A fan planted the seed, Marvel grew it, and McFarlane made it bite. Venom is the ultimate happy accident. Part editorial scramble, part visual experiment, and all nightmare fuel. Not bad for a $220 idea that ended up devouring half of Spider-Man's legacy. Well, that's it for this one. If you liked the video, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and ring the bell so you never miss a drop. Craving more stories from comics, movies, and beyond? Check out this video right here. Cheers and see you in the next one.